A very good afternoon to you. 12:30 this Sunday afternoon. It's a Rupal's Chatty Women's special. We're going to be talking about mental health issues on the show today, and we'll run as long as we can, and as long as you get involved. If you have an issue with mental health, or you perhaps think it's a taboo subject within your community, then we'd love to hear your thoughts and your experiences as well. So make sure you put your comments in the comments section below, and our mystery voice will try and read them out. We've got two very special guests here with me for this special Rupal's Chatty Women today on mental health. So we have Rehana Sidat, who's a mental health advocate. Good to have you here, Rehana. And Rehana's daughter, Sheereen Sidat, who is a psychotherapist. Most importantly, though, your interaction, your thoughts and your comments are really welcome during the programme today. If you want to share this post as well with other people, then please do that. Thank you for already tuning in. Make sure you do throughout the whole show. Approximately, and this is something I put in the trail, if you saw the trail, approximately 1 in 4 people in the UK will experience a mental health problem each year. In England, 1 in 6 people report experiencing a common mental health problem in any given week. This is according to figures from the charity Mind charity. I guess this is not something that's new to you or surprises you guys in any shape or form. Let's talk a little bit about how we actually define a mental health problem or a mental health issue or illness. Sheereen.
Okay. Well, mental health is something that we all have, just like physical health, and that means that we need to take care of our mental health in the same way that we do our physical health, and take it as seriously as well. And mental health means that, well, it's about the way that we think, we feel, we behave. So when we're thinking about mental health problems, it means that our feelings, our thoughts, and our behaviour is negatively affected by whatever we're going through in our experiences. So I think earlier we were talking about things like the most common ones are things like depression and anxiety, and then you've got mood disorders, anxiety disorders, eating disorders, and whether they're diagnosed or not, it still can be an issue. Yeah,
and it's something that's been highlighted, I think, in the news. People seem to be talking more about mental health conditions, illnesses, because you have celebrities talking about it,
which is
coming
great.
out openly talking about these sorts of things. You mentioned some of the sort of common problems. I mean, something as simple that you went through yourself, Sheereen, when you were at university was anxiety.
Yeah.
Explain what happened.
So when I was 18, 19, and I started university, and I was doing psychology, which was a dream of mine, and I really enjoyed it at college, and I wanted to be a therapist, and so this was the route that I was taking. But actually it turned out to be a massive disappointment, and I think that was really hard for me to even acknowledge. So I kind of just chugged along and thought, nope, this is fine, I'm fine, everything's okay, and that's when the anxiety started, and I started feeling panicky all the time, to the point so this kind of happened over a year and a half, to the point where I was experiencing panic attacks, almost like I was in a state of panic all the time. And it was a big part of it was down to actually I was just really unhappy, but I didn't know that. I just didn't know that, and I didn't acknowledge it as that. And only until I reached a point where I thought, okay, this is really out of my control now. And then kind of spoke to my family about it and got the help that I needed. But anxiety is a really, really common problem, especially in young people. So yeah.
I've been through anxiety. I sort of developed panic attacks a few years ago when I had a particular health condition, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know, I thought I was dying, and then when you first have a panic attack, it is quite scary.
Yes,
it is. You feel like you're going to die.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the only thought that comes in your mind is,
And
yeah.
you really don't know quite how to handle it, because if it's something you've never had before, you've never experienced before, it can be really scary.
Yeah, because you're completely out of control, and it's so frightening, and you feel like you can't breathe. You know, I mean, people will have different symptoms, but one of the things that happens to me is I feel like I can't breathe, I'm choking, you know, and I want to get out of this state, and I want to do anything to get out of this feeling that I'm feeling. So, you know, if I could fly, I'd fly. It's like that. I want to run away, and sometimes you start thinking that if you run away from here, the feeling's going to go away, but it doesn't, because you need to actually find out the root of what's causing this anxiety that you have. So it's difficult, you know, and those around you that don't understand, it can be extremely difficult for them as well.
So it's clearly something that you've gone through.
Oh
too.
yes, I mean, I, you know, we all have anxiety. I have anxiety on a daily basis, but it's manageable. But there are times when it does become out of control, and it can be really, really difficult. Because then I'll make it worse. I don't need anybody else to make it worse. I'll make it worse myself with my own mind, because I will imagine the worst, and I will keep revisiting that feeling again and again, and then I'll get into the trap again. So it's a lot of my, work on myself has been about self-care, taking care of myself, and being kind to myself, because I'm very good at being empathetic to others, being kind to others, and in my professional work, obviously when I'm mentoring and coaching people, I would be telling them how to take care of themselves. Yet I was unable to do that for myself. So it's been a long journey for me to then say, hold on a minute, you need to be kind to yourself. You need to be taking care of yourself. The advice you're giving to other people, you need to practice what you preach, Rehana. And that's took work, because it's been quite alien, because I come from, I mean, you might know the word Sewa. Yeah, so I come from a faith where, again, we're about caring about the world and everybody around us, and I'm good at giving, but I found it very alien to give to myself. So it's took a lot of work, but I'm there. So if I've had a bad night, because I'm like you, I have a physical health condition, long-term condition, that does impact on my emotions sometimes. I tell myself, well, you're feeling like this because you've not slept all night. So I'm able to then, you know, take care of me. And if that means, okay, I need to withdraw a little bit. Yeah, I need to be well enough for work. So I'm not going to do the other thing that I was going to do, which was voluntary. And that's how I balance it.
So we kind of, you know, talk about anxiety, we talk about panic attacks, but Sheereen, it can be to the opposite scale, where it is serious, it's severe, to the point where people have and do take their own life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think suicide is a big thing that we really don't really talk about, or we shy away from.
But it's increasing for
and
younger people, because
yeah.
there are so many more pressures on young people to perform. And then you've got, you know, like you were at university doing psychology, didn't really know that you were actually having panic attacks.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the pressures and the expectations of young people, and because, you know, everything's so much more moving fast, and the technology is advancing so quickly, everything's so instant, we're living in this world with pressure. So I think maybe the pressures when you and I, Rupal, were younger, were a little bit different to what our young people are facing now. There's a huge amount of pressure.
And how important is it to get diagnosed in you know, a medical way, Sheereen? Do you think?
I have I keep quite an open mind about it, because clearly I'm not a medical professional. My job isn't to diagnose, and I wouldn't want to. But for some people, diagnosis is so important. It's key to them and who they are, especially if they've been fighting for a really long time to get a diagnosis and to get help. Sometimes having a label and diagnosis means that's the only way that they can get the help that they need, and that's why it's really important. For some people, that label is just a label, and it doesn't mean anything to them, or it's actually really damaging and harmful. So I think everybody experiences or has different views about whether diagnosis is right for them or not, and so I could never kind of take away from that or say differently, because for some people it's a lifeline, and for some people actually it's the opposite. It's the worst thing ever, because then that's the only thing that defines them, when actually, if we're thinking about mental health, then we all have mental health, and that means that we it's a part of us. It's not the defining thing about us. So if I said that actually I had anxiety in the past, it felt like it was defining me at that moment, but actually it's a part of me, and I still have anxious thoughts, and I still have, and all of the feelings, kind of like sometimes I'm scared, sometimes I'm happy. But they're all parts of me. They're not the only thing about me. So you can have, I think there's a misconception about people, even with diagnosed conditions, that they can only be that. They can't be anything else. When actually that's not true.
It doesn't need to define them.
That's what you can have depression and anxiety, or well, just to name a few, or any disorder or any condition, and still live, be in relationships, have jobs, fulfilling jobs, be happy, fall in love. All of those things, you can do all of those things and be all of those things, and have mental health issues.
Yeah.
I want to talk about taboos in just a few minutes' time, but Mr. Voice, have we got people watching?
We have.
Any comments, any thoughts?
We haven't had any comments, but we've just got a heart going across. We've had Ash join us, Sonal. Nithu's just put a comment on. Mental health is a very serious issue my friend is going through, and when you talk to them to help, it's like you're against them. How do one help?
So how does somebody help somebody that's in a was that Nithu?
Yeah.
Mr. Voice. Nithu just asking that she's got a friend who's going through an issue, but how do you go about helping somebody?
Yeah.
If they don't want to talk about it.
The thing is, I always say, and I think because I recently went through a period of depression, and even the people closest to me couldn't help me. And somehow I wasn't hearing what they were actually saying. They were reaching out to give me a helping hand, but I was seeing them as not understanding me and interfering. It almost felt like they were the enemy when they're not. But that's how I saw it, you see. So I always say to people now, I wrote up a list of, we did like a tips, didn't we, supporting others. And one of the things I say is, don't give up on them. Because although we don't want you around, we do want you. So I want you to be accessible. What I was actually trying to say to my family is I want you to be accessible when I want you. I don't want you to give up on me just because I'm giving up on you. And it sounds crazy saying that, but that's exactly how I felt, So I would say don't give up on her. Tell her that you're there for her if and when she needs you. So she's able to reach out to you and say to her that you love her no matter what. So she doesn't feel judged. That's some of the things I would say.
Mr. Voice.
We've got a comment here. Is Tanya's asking, hi Rupal, can I ask how is one to cope with silent panic attacks which are visibly not hyperventilating?
Yeah.
So someone's having the panic attack, but they haven't got the physical manifestation of it.
I think
it's difficult.
It is difficult. I think it's about finding what you find calming, what you find centers you, and focusing on that. So some people might do meditation and kind of breathing exercises. For some people it's being around someone and talking through what they're going through.
And sometimes it's actually going to a therapist. Because actually you can talk to a therapist about everything that's going on, which you may not be able to do with your family or friends.
Absolutely.
And I think, sort of on practical terms, if you're talking about, perhaps being there in the middle of the night when everyone else is asleep or you're at home on your own, I've been there, I know what that feels like. And it is the most horrendous feeling ever because you do not have any control over that. And it is about finding that one thing that will help you. And somebody said to me once, just pour cold water all over you is something that works. And do you know what? I've tried it and it does work because it suddenly shakes you out
of that thing.
Of things. But my biggest thing was I needed to get out.
Yes.
Because I felt trapped.
Yes.
When you're having a panic attack, you just want to run.
Yes.
You want to scream.
Is it running away from your own body? That's the question.
Yeah. But if you're going through that, you need to find sort of mechanisms, don't you?
Yeah. Even if it's a temporary.
Exactly.
In the short
temporary
term.
that will help. I know people that will sort of, if you're a smoker, that will pick up a cigarette and smoke, they will scream or shout, whatever it is that helps you. You've got to find that trigger and you've got to find that thing that can help you. to manage that. And if you're watching, if you're somebody else that's not Tanya right now, that is going through something similar or have been through something similar, and you can help and advise, then please put your comments in the comments section so that we can share it with everyone else. And make sure that you share this video. This is a special Rupal's Chatty Women. We're going to go on as long as needs be, and as long as you're there, you're watching and you're asking the questions. I've got questions of my own still to ask, but your thoughts, please, in the comment section. Make sure you share the video as well, please, because I think this is really important. It's something that so many people talk about, but yet we don't talk about enough, I don't think. Absolutely. So we have Rehana Sidat, who is a mental health advocate, and Sheereen Sidat, who is her daughter, which is a psychotherapist as well. And we're talking about mental health issues today. I want to talk a little bit about, how taboo the subject actually is, and whether it is more acceptable to talk about mental health, and particularly at places like work.
Absolutely. You know? Oh, yes.
Because I feel like you're going to be labelled if you say I suffer with depression, or I have panic attacks, or I have this, or I have bipolar. Yeah, I know friends that have been in that situation, and suddenly they're sort of labelled as not, as you
not
saying,
perfect.
Yeah, and not necessarily able to do their job.
Yeah.
But how taboo is this, Rana?
Well, I think it's a huge taboo. I mean, it's great. You mentioned earlier that famous people are openly talking about it, and the royals have talked about it, and it started a great debate. It's great, but it's not enough. It's never going to be enough unless the people that you are interacting with on a daily basis have an understanding of mental health. And lots of us don't. And I think the more that we are able to understand each other, understand these, health difficulties, we're able to then not judge people the way currently people would judge you. So just because I have had struggles with my mental health does not mean I'm incompetent at my job. In fact, I'm told I'm very good at my job, and I'm better because I have empathy for people, and I care about other people's feelings. I'm more considerate, So it actually enhances my work, but not everybody is able to see that. So I know one of the things you mentioned, I know you were talking about diagnosis and going to see a medical professional. One of my fears was having in my records that I have depression, because where is that going to be revealed? Who is going to see that, right? And is work going to see that?
One of the things we've got currently is that the government's put out a health and well-being. There's information, and they've put things out saying that people have to be treated with respect. Now, the Equalities Law already says that nobody should be discriminated against around their mental health, but I don't think it's kind of filtered down because we've not had appropriate kind of training around what that means and what it means for the person who's going through it, but what we as colleagues need to do to help, not to label or hinder or treat people differently.
See, Rupal,
any other comments so far?
See, Rupal, people joining. So Prafula Ash says, brilliant watching and listening, old friends.
Thanks, Ash.
Rupal, I was just going to say, and I don't think media's portrayal of mental health helps at all. So you're watching a movie, and the mass murderer has got mental illness. The news stories, the headlines that we get about the person with mental illness being it's always extreme. Either it's somebody who's killed his children and wife and then killed himself, or somebody who has gone out there on a rampage or done something or stabbed somebody in the street. And then that puts fear into the public, and they think we're all dangerous.
Let's talk about that in a bit more detail in a slightly different respect. Okay. In terms of it being taboo and some of the things you're talking about, but in different communities. Particularly within the South Asian communities, you're Muslim, I'm Hindu, and I think we're sort of very similar sort of attitudes when it comes to mental health issues, Rana.
Well, especially in terms of I would say my parents' generation is not talked about,
No.
and even our age, Rupal, a lot of adults don't talk about it. I know it's starting to change with younger people, but not necessarily so, because if it's a habit that's been formed and gets passed down generation to generation, it continues because you know no different, and you think, oh, that's frowned upon, and then you get into the habit of not talking about it. And one of the things that's really hard is that we pretend. That pretending is so exhausting for the person who's going through it, because you're having to put on a face. And, we're part of communities where we get together in large groups, these big weddings and things. So because we can't avoid them, we get into this habit, we train ourselves to pretend we're okay.
But why? Why do we do that?
Because we're so afraid of the reactions. And because society is not accepting of us as we are, somehow we're seen as different, as crazy, or not good enough. So, arranged marriages are still common in, our communities. So, if you're looking for a rishta, for a proposal, if you put it out there that you have a mental illness, or your daughter or your son has a mental illness, somehow that's going to deter those offers, or it's going to tarnish your reputation because it's seen as a negative. People don't understand because, as I say, don't have the understanding awareness.
Yes, I think there's a lot of shame around having mental health issues purely because we don't understand it. We don't have the understanding ourselves, our families don't, or parents, grandparents, families, and that means that we don't have the language to express that either.
Talk to me about that. Talk to me about that.
Yes, and we were talking about language. Actually, we don't have the language to express our feelings. So if it's not encouraged, and then we kind of grow up thinking, we don't talk about these things, and we reach a point where we think, oh my God, I need to talk about this, or I'm feeling something, but I don't have the words because nobody's ever told me this is what. So for anxiety or panic attacks, it's if nobody's ever talked to you about it, if you're not aware of it, you can think, what is this feeling? I think I'm dying, when actually it's oh no, I'm feeling really anxious.
But we were talking about literal words. So I mean, I'm Gujarati. And you're Gujarati. And so we were saying for what kind of words do we have? The words we have are so negative. The mad, they equate to madness and mad and crazy.
Like Gandhi, Gandor, would be, someone who's mad. But there is not a literal word for something like bipolar, for instance, or having a panic attack. I mean, how do you describe that?
They would just say, I think, Jiv Gabrai, or Becheni, Becheni. But there isn't enough. We haven't got those, the words we need to describe our emotions in our own languages.
Lots of love hearts coming across the screen, so thank you for that. If you are tuning in, please stay tuned. We're going to keep going as long as you're there. So let us know you're watching, let us know where you're watching, if it's something that's affected you, mental health issues, so maybe a member of your family, maybe you want a bit of advice. Let's see if we can help, or let's see if somebody else watching can help this afternoon. Let's talk a little bit about taboos with you as well. Is it a taboo subject sort of in your community, in your faith? How's it affected you in that sense? Is it something that you can actually talk about openly to members of your family, or is it something that you've had to seek help, from outsiders on? Is it a generational thing? Is it that the older generation are just not used to talking about these sorts of issues because there's this bravado that you've got to, that you have to be strong, that you have to be able to cope, and talking about these things is not going to get you anywhere. So please make sure you comment in the comments section, and
please do.
Let us know what you're thinking. Mystery Voice has got something to say.
I've got a question for you. When you get older people, do they think it's a social?
Social as in?
As opposed to a work environment, when they've come to you as a therapist.
I've come across people who, when I tell them what I do, completely blank. I have no idea what that is. And I would say for older people, within my community, it's like if I tell them I'm a therapist, they have no idea why I'm doing that. Come to me.
Clients who come to you who are older, do they think it's a social?
I haven't had that experience.
Oh, right. Okay.
I think before when we were talking about the taboos, and you were going to ask me about is that changing. I would say I've seen changes across the board. So I've seen young people who are more open-minded and who are more understanding or willing to understand and expand their knowledge. And then I've seen older people who are saying, actually, no, we've been this way for a really long time. It is not working.
Right.
We want help. We want things to
Is it
change.
because the younger people are speaking English and English is their language of communication that they're able to access the words, and therefore it's changing for the previous generation because they're saying, do you know what, we think you're depressed.
Yeah, because they're more aware, aren't they? Young people are more aware, and we've got more people being diagnosed with dementia, and that I think in itself is creating more awareness in terms of that age group. You know?
Let's talk about men, because I want to talk about men and mental health. Some great sort of Bollywood films that have in recent years that have sort of dealt with the issue of mental health problems, and huge figures in terms of the rate of suicide amongst men, particularly in India, and particularly amongst students in India. But here also, I mean, you were Sheereen talking about figures of there's a higher rate of men committing suicide as a result of sort of mental health issues. What is it? A man.
What is it? 100
commit suicide every 120 minutes in the UK.
Yeah.
Staggering.
It is.
Why is it that men don't want to talk about these problems?
I think a lot of it comes if we're talking about South Asian communities and the taboos that we already have, then I think we just have a hell of a lot more barriers when it comes to men and them feeling things and expressing themselves. So the barriers are a lot more and a lot thicker than I think they are for women, especially because there's a misconception and a misunderstanding that feeling equals weakness, or talking about your feelings means you're weak, and if you're a man, you're strong. And that means emotionally, mentally strong as well, that you can go through anything that life has to throw at you and be fine.
Do women have each other to talk to, whereas men?
And that's another thing, is that women, and again, these are massive generalizations, there are always exceptions to all of that, but women talk more, we're encouraged to talk more, or it's more acceptable for us to talk more, talk to our friends and family, whereas men, it might be you grin and bear it, or if you talk about things, it's kind of bare minimum, I think.
Oh, I mean, I don't know. Do you guys talk amongst themselves about these sorts of issues, or is it those conversations that you, as a man, if you're watching, do you talk about these sorts of things with other guys, and you just don't want to talk about it with other women? I don't know. Miss your voice.
Okay, we've got a comment from Mehboob, and he's saying, I've worked in mental health field for over 25 years. I used to visit each community group and give informal talks on different topics of mental health. I think going out to the community and educating the people helps to break the barrier.
Absolutely. And this is what you mean.
And as a bloke, do you talk about these issues, is what I want to know as well. Is it something you talk about? I can hand on heart, and my husband's probably going to hate me for saying this, but, we women openly talk about stuff with other women or people. We're quite
or with them.
Open, or with them. We're a lot more open, and trying to get the other half to talk about stuff. It's like getting blood out of a stone. It's like, talk to me about how you are feeling.
Yes.
And it's like, I'm fine.
Yes.
When you can clearly see that,
I mean, it's the same with my husband as well, because they come from the whole, if we think about the way they're brought up, the protector, the strong one, the one who's going to take care of everyone. I'm just going to step back quickly to the South Asian community men, is that if we think about how we put them up there, I'm not saying that we, as in I mean the community, and he's going to be the answer to all your problems, And as women, we are contributing to that, and we're saying to him, "You're the big brother," or you're the man of the house.
So
Your father's not going to be around now, so you need to take care of your sisters and your mum. Or we already prepare them for after when we're going to die.
Yeah.
We tell them that you're going to take on the responsibility. All of that
And
pressure, the pressure we put
Yeah.
on, and that generally across the board for men is there. And I said to you earlier that it's acceptable for a man to express certain emotions, but not others. So for a man, it's not encouraged for him to cry, but it's acceptable if he loses his temper. How is that right? And how if you imagine having to suppress your emotions again and again and again, what that's going to do to you, And so it's not any wonder that suicide rates are so high.
Yeah. Where does somebody start to get help, Sheereen?
I think there's a number of ways that you can go about doing that. I think if we're looking within South Asian communities, then it's about breaking the taboos, breaking the barriers, having the conversations, being open.
About.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's where it starts on a larger scale. And if it is something that you're struggling with, or you know someone that is struggling, then I think if it's yourself, then maybe accepting that actually I've got an issue, something isn't right, or I need help. I think that's because nothing is going to happen until you admit that to yourself, until you accept that, or you accept it if somebody else is telling you, and it's somebody that you trust, and it's not in a critical way, but it's somebody that you trust, and you think it's a friend, and you say, actually, you know what, I think it looks like you're struggling. I think you need to get some help. Then maybe not seeing it as a criticism or as a threatening thing, but actually, this is somebody that I trust. This is a friend. Yeah. Maybe I
and not seeing it as a sign of weakness as well.
And
just
that's
because,
a big thing. Yeah.
The admittance and not seeing it as something as you being weak. Yeah. Mr. Voice, we've got some more comments, I think.
Mabel is saying, I speak to my friend when I know the pressure's building up. That's cool. That's because I have an understanding of when it's gone. But lots of people I know don't seek help.
Yeah. Loads of people don't. And admitting something to start with, asking for help is not wrong.
It's not weak.
It's not weak.
I think it takes a lot of courage to say, actually, you know what, I'm struggling with this.
Absolutely.
I need some help.
Absolutely.
And
sorry, do people? It's they think of it as, because it's a mental or a spiritual kind of pain, do people kind of disconnect that because they think if it's physical, I know I've got to go to the doctor, but I don't know who to go to.
Yes. Yeah, I think some of that is true. It's like, what do I do? Or even if there are options like going to your GP or therapist, it's like, well, nothing's going to change. Nothing's what's going to change. What can they do? Nobody can do anything about this. And again, that means that they've become dismissive of their own feelings and their own experience, which is a real shame.
You, Rehana, have set up you can explain a group called Jamila's Legacy that you're really passionate about. Just explain a little bit about that.
Well, I set up Jamila's Legacy about 2 years ago, and it's a voluntary initiative. It's a charity, and basically, for such a long time, I keep meeting people in my personal and professional life who are really struggling with their mental health, and I often find it's hard for them to find places where they can openly have a voice and talk and share their experiences. But also the amount of lack of misunderstanding and awareness in the community in terms of mental health. And I thought, well, if we can start the ball rolling and get people talking and it becoming a norm and not, alien, oh no, we don't talk about this. The more people talk, more people are likely to, like Sheereen said, admit that they are struggling and likely to get help, So I wanted to do something for that. So that's why I created Jamila's Legacy.
And you sort of run that here in Leicester once a month.
Yeah, we run free workshops. Once a month, and basically we focus on different topics. So, but always linked to mental health. So it's to equip people, and it's not just for people who have a mental illness, or it's for anybody, because we all have mental health, and what we're trying to promote is that we all take care of our mental health. And it's important to know how to take care of our mental health. but also if somebody else that we know is struggling, we're able to maybe do something about it, even if in a tiny way, in terms of it could be just the way we respond and the way we approach them. So that's the reason why. And then the third thing is obviously giving people with a mental illness and mental health difficulties a chance to voice what they want to say and share their stories. So we've had a young lady share her story about how she was sexually abused as a child and how that's affected her mental health. We've had a lady share her experiences about how domestic abuse has impacted on her mental health. We've had a young man who talked about how his sexuality and how being bullied at school has affected his mental health. And so we've had lots of different topics. Our next workshop is on the 10th of December. Sheereen, do you want to just share what it's going to be about?
Yes, so we are going to be holding a workshop on emotional intelligence and emotional resilience, which I think is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Explain what that is briefly.
Okay, so I think if we're going back to kind of language and not having language for our emotions and our feelings and how to express them, then hopefully this workshop is going to be looking at what language there is out there, what our emotions are, how do we know when we feel them, do we even know how we feel them, and then how do we express them, and then maybe finding healthy ways of expressing them. And emotional resilience is how resilient are we emotionally when things happen to us? Do we kind of get back up again? And that doesn't mean that we get over things. It means and ignore the feelings. It's that we feel all the things, so all the difficult things, the sadness and the anger and the fear and all of that, but that we get up again from that and find but not avoiding the issue. So if for example, if you're talking about
Grief?
Yeah, okay, grief, yeah. So if having a loved one die or a friend die, you feel all those things. You don't ignore the feelings, but that you're able to still manage and kind of not get on with your life, but
learn to live with
yes, that's right. Live with the loss and learn to live without them.
And an acceptance, isn't it? Come to a place which takes time. Yeah. It doesn't happen overnight.
No. And I think, but it's if we can equip ourselves with how. So I think resilience, a big part of it is self-care, but having a good support network as well, having friends and family who are there around you. And I can attest to that, because a big part of my kind of healing and recovery was having a family that I could go to and say, actually, you know what, I'm struggling, I need some help. And that being met rather than get on with it. This is not an issue, pull yourself together sort of thing. Actually, no, this is a serious problem, but you're going to be okay, and we're going to help you to get there.
Finally, comments, okay? We've got some more comments, which is great.
Yeah. Victoria Morton writes, I've been having anxiety for years. It's taking over my body. Any noise, my body starts rocking. I feel like the walls and the floors are tiling. In the evening, every evening, I have palpitations. I was told I had a trauma in my life because anxiety, stress are building up in my body. This is what they told me. I've got somatosensory in her body. So basically her body is showing the anxiety, because there's a physical manifestation of the mental illness, ill health.
Yes.
So her body's starting to
respond and react.
What would you say to her, Sheereen? Maybe go and see a therapist?
I'm really sorry that you're going through that. It sounds really, really difficult.
Exhausting.
And incredibly exhausting. And I really hope that you're not alone in that, and you do have support, and you do have somebody to talk to about it, and somebody there to support you. I know that when we're talking about kind of thinking about help and where to go, if you haven't been to your GP, that might be a way to go, or to talk about it with, as in go to a therapist and explore what's behind the anxiety. So that in a way, I've found if we're talking about anxiety, then yes, medication is there as an option, but I found that the work that I do has a massive impact in understanding the anxiety, into finging methods of coping and dealing with it, and hopefully
it's about getting to the root cause.
Getting to the root. If there's a trauma that's triggering it, that's what needs to be worked on.
Well, what I would say is, as somebody who
Yeah.
has had those
Yeah.
experiences and even currently has it, to unpack childhood trauma. I don't trust myself to do that on my own or revisit that.
Yeah.
I would need to be with a therapist who has
Yeah.
nothing to do with my life to able to slowly, still feel in control, but have somebody to facilitate that.
Yeah.
And I would recommend that.
Any more comments? Any last comments? Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you share this Rupal's Chatty Women special on mental health with anyone that you think might benefit from it, because it's about trying to get out there and trying to help each other, really. Last bit of advice, Sheereen, getting help. GP, first point of call, possibly.
Yeah.
Family, what else? Lots of organisations.
Yeah, there are lots of organisations, like there's Mind, I'm just reading
Rethink.
Or even local groups, like Jamila's Legacy, we're always open to everyone, and they're free workshops.
They're free workshops, open to anybody.
We'll put the links in the comment section as well, so if you want to find out more about Mind, Rethink, there are hundreds of others. If you want to share, please, put them in the comment section as well, so that other people can see them as well. There may be ones that we're not aware of, around the country. So please do that, but get some help. Don't sit there by yourself thinking I can't cope with it and not do anything about it.
Absolutely. Take care of yourselves. Reach out to somebody you trust and tell them that, hey, I'm struggling with this. And as Rupal said, it's okay to say I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rehana and Sheereen, and of course our mystery voice as well. Most importantly to you for tuning in. We'll do another Rupal's Chatty Women in a couple of weeks' time. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.